Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're starting something new this week, and we're inviting some of our congregants to come and light candles with us to welcome in the Shabbat. And this week, we're having two of our congregants, Tracy and Anna, who have been helping so much with leading group processing sessions, represent a whole group of other therapists and pastoral counselors who have also been helping in this way with our congregation all these weeks. And we are so grateful to them, and we're so grateful to you, Tracy, Anna, and all of you who are out there who have been helping in this way, for being there for our community, for our Stephen Wise family. And so thank you for being here tonight to help us with lighting the candles. And we will do so now. I'll invite Tracy forward for the blessing for the lighting of the candles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlikner shel Shabbat.
Amen. And now we invite forward Anna.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Amen. Eloheinu v'Elokei Avotenu v'Imotenu, our God, God of our forefathers and our foremothers, bless you and give you peace and good health and joy this Shabbat and always. Amen. And God bless all of you who are with us tonight this Shabbat with good health, peace, and joy. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
ever since my early days, going all the way back to rabbinical school, I've been a bit intimidated by this Torah portion, Tazria Metzora. I still remember rabbinical school and some of the traumas associated with this Torah portion. Back then, we used to have this practice of delivering senior sermons. That was every student during their 4th of 5 years of rabbinical school would have to stand in front of the entire community. All of the hyper-critical students and all of the hyper-judgmental faculty and some guests, even some trustees of the Hebrew Union College. And these 4th-year rabbinical students would deliver what was called a senior sermon, which would then be evaluated by everyone else. It was in the middle of a morning service on a Thursday morning. And after the service was over, the whole school would go downstairs and over lunch critique the student's senior sermon. The entire discussion, I think it was about an hour, was all about how well the 4th-year student did, how good was the senior sermon, and what the student might want to think about moving forward. And I think it was greeted with particular relish by fellow students who had a tendency to be competitive one with the other, and hyper-judgmental faculty who I think felt that this would be the equivalent of a kind of boot camp, basic training for rabbinical students who for the first time could now stand in front of a crowd and play act, being a rabbi. The first time they'd be able to give actually a sermon in front of other people. And I can tell you, despite the fact that they might have looked at it as a kind of boot camp, I actually spent 3 years in the military, in the Israel Defense Forces, and I actually did spend time in boot camp, in basic training, in my preparation for being a tank commander. And I can tell you with certainty that in some ways, not every way, but in some way, this senior sermon experience of basic training was even worse than the basic training in the IDF. And so you can understand how rabbinical students prayed on my assigned day of giving the senior sermon, just don't make it Tazria Metzora. And that sentiment has stayed with me even in my rabbinate. I feel kind of guilty when the B'nai Mitzvah students that are celebrating during this particular week, when the Parsha is read, I feel a bit guilty that they're given this Parsha. It's full of blood and guts and pus and bodily eruptions, what the teenagers call TMI. But nonetheless, they have to grapple with it. But over time, gradually, I've changed my mind about this Parsha. And honestly, if I were to look at April of 2020, I can't think of a better, more relevant Parsha to give a Dvar Torah on than Tazria Metzora. What is described there is that when the priests would observe, the Kohanim, when they would observe that somebody was suffering from what's called tzara'at. We don't really know what that was. It's some kind of skin ailment. Some people understand that as leprosy. It probably wasn't, but some kind of skin ailment. The priests would go and examine the person. And if they determined that this person was unclean, which was a spiritual category more than a medical category or a physical category, they would remove that person from the camp. What we would call today, they would quarantine that person. They would socially isolate that person. And this process of removing a person from the camp, from antiquity until modern times, is fraught with the potential for damage and destruction and prejudice and harm and suffering. We know from descriptions in antiquity, we know from Athens and Sparta and Rome of descriptions of people who were weaker in society who were removed from society. There are some Greek accounts about how they were forced to drink the hemlock. There's some accounts from Sparta that they would examine young babies, young children, and if they were discovered to be deformed in some way, the accounts suggest that these children would be left out, exposed to the elements to die. So this was a form in antiquity of the survival of the fittest, Darwinism, 2,000 years before Darwin. And needless to say, we haven't changed all that much. We think we have, but we really haven't. We still have these prejudices against other people. We still tend to separate the good people from what we perceive to be the unhealthy people. We still have so many people around the world who are born into the wrong caste and can never get out of that caste. We still tend to separate between the beautiful people and the deformed people, the strong people and the weak people, the useful people, and those who are perceived to be dead weight. And we know even in this country, it wasn't too long ago, our country was founded with the tolerance of slavery. And slavery, as in all forms of racism and anti-Semitism, slavery was based on the assumption that there was something about those people, African Americans, that was different from us, and therefore they were of less moral worth. And the original American Constitution tolerated slavery and defined a slave for counting purposes as 3/5 of a white person, which wasn't overturned until the 14th Amendment in 1868. But I'm thinking about all of this in April of 2020 during our pandemic. And in truth, even if some people don't say it outright, many people still are distinguishing between those, the stigma of those who are ill and those who are healthy in dealing with this pandemic. There is the assumption that, which is true, we know that all people suffer from COVID-19, and sadly, people of all ages and all backgrounds and all ethnicities pass away. Nonetheless, it is also the case that elderly people and people with pre-existing conditions are disproportionately affected by COVID-19. And there is an express argument, and there's a much more powerful, subtle argument that's coming out in all kinds of ways in the United States. That why, after all, should the entire world be shut down with all of the consequent damage that that's causing for people who are weaker in any case? Wouldn't it be better to sacrifice those people for the sake of the rest of the world? It's kind of like the modern equivalent of put the elderly person out on the ice sheet and have them be exposed to the element and let them pass away, or throw them into the river. Now, at first glance, if you were to read the Torah portion superficially, you might conclude that this also is the operating assumption of the Torah portion. That is, let's separate between the healthy person and what the Bible calls metzoraim, those who have this condition of tzara'at. Let's quarantine them and isolate them so that we don't have to be reminded of their disfigurement, and that in some way that will stick to us. But if you study the Parsha more carefully, you will see that in fact it is completely different from this Darwin philosophy of the survival of the fittest. In fact, we are taught that the metzoraim, those who have this skin condition, were not born into this category of those afflicted. And therefore, the affliction was not permanent, and therefore the quarantine, the social isolation, was not permanent. People have a tendency to look at this passage and to put the emphasis on these people were socially isolated. But in fact, that's the wrong emphasis. If you study the Parsha carefully, you'll see that an entire chapter, Leviticus 14, is devoted to how the priest has an obligation to build a bridge so that these people can come back into society. The point was that they should come back, not that they should be isolated permanently. And the priests were allowed to exploit every possible loophole under the sun to bring people back. And this tradition was embellished by the rabbis so that, in effect, even somebody who still had visible signs of a skin ailment could be brought back into the community. And when they were brought back, they were welcomed in an elaborate ritual of welcome back. And so what we see here in the Bible is institutionalized hope, ritualized hope. We're not going to let you sit out there isolated for too long a period of time. We are going to build a process where you are welcomed back into society. It's clear that the Kohanim, the priests, were not doing medicine. They were not lab technicians. They were not medical doctors. They didn't have biotechnology assets. They didn't have degrees. They were doing religion. And what the Torah is teaching us is that healing is not only a medical process. Here, pop this pill and you're better. No, that of course medicine and science have a central role to play, but that's not the be-all and end-all of healing. That healing is also a spiritual process. It's an emotional process. It's a religious process. And we now see that even after we are able to develop treatments and hopefully find a vaccine for this COVID-19 disease, still, we have to remember that will not be the be-all and end-all of healing. Healing is not only a vaccine process. Healing is a spiritual process, a religious process. Just take a look and see. We now understand much more deeply how underprepared and how exposed America was to a pandemic like this. Look at the nursing homes. We kind of knew all of this, but we preferred not to look at it carefully. Look at the millions of people who have lost jobs and therefore have no ability to sustain themselves and their families. Look at the lines to the food bank. Look at all those Americans who have no medical insurance. Tens of millions of Americans who don't even have the basic capacity to be able to go to a doctor and to heal themselves. So what we see alongside the unbelievable brilliance and progress and wealth in this country, we also see so many now, it's exposed to us more than ever, all these moral potholes. America is physically and literally and figuratively filled with potholes. We're pockmarked with potholes. The rabbinic tradition draws a nexus, a connection between our physical well-being and our moral well-being. That they suggested that these physical maladies that are described in the book of Leviticus have a moral dimension to them. Now, the rabbis didn't have biotechnology degrees, they didn't have medical degrees, but they weren't stupid. They realized that whatever it is that was causing this affliction didn't care about Moses and high philosophy. It's like the coronavirus doesn't care about Moses or Maimonides or Jefferson or Rousseau or John Stuart Mill, obviously. At the same time, what we learn in the book of Leviticus is that the essence of the epidemic in Leviticus included not only the physical dimension, it also had a moral dimension to it. And therefore, what the Bible is teaching us, we cannot be fully cured. through the science and the medicine. We can only be fully cured if we cure ourselves morally as well. And that'll be the big challenge for us when we emerge from this first phase of battling the coronavirus. Even after treatments are devised, and let's hope and pray that a vaccine will be available, even after, we will not be fully healed until we heal all the moral deficiencies in this country. And let us hope and let us pray that we will be up to the challenge. Shabbat Shalom.
בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמן.
We now offer a Misha Berach prayer. Jewish tradition teaches that when someone is ill and when we go and visit them in the hospital or at their sick bed, that we are supposed to make sure that our bodies are level so that our eyes are meeting their eyes. And the reason behind this, they say, is because the Shekhinah, an aspect of God, dwells around the head of a person who is ill, helping to strengthen them and to give them courage. And that when we are present in that and we make sure that we are level with that, that we also engage in that holy act of being in the presence of God and of strengthening the person who is ill. And so for all of you who are praying for someone who is ill or who are ill yourselves, I pray that you can feel God's presence with you, that God strengthens you, that God helps you to heal in body and spirit. If you are praying for someone and you'd like to share their names aloud from wherever you are, please do so now. Misha Berach, Avotenu v'Imotenu, Abraham, Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel v'Leah, Hu Yivarech et ha-cholim. May God swiftly send a healing of body and of spirit, to which we say, Amen. We turn in our prayer books now to page 282 for the Aleinu. Please join with me. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakon, latit gedula liotze bereshit, shelo asanu k'goyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'goyralinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ביוסר הארץ ומושבי קרוב השמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אינון, אמת מקינו, אמת זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום בהשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. Our thoughts now turn to those who have departed from this earth. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. If you are saying Kaddish for somebody and you'd like to share their names aloud with us from wherever you are, please do so now. We rise and we turn to page 294 for the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitzgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabba, be'alma divrach yurtei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon, u'v'chaye d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehei shemei rabba mvorach le'olam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'alev v'yithalal shemei d'kudasha barichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlam arava min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu Shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. We close our service with words of blessing. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and may God protect you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May God be gracious to you and may God's face shine upon you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May you feel God's presence with you always and may God give you peace and strength and healing. Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru amen. Shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru amen. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru amen. Yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la.
Join with me for Kiddush and Motzi. Vayehi erev vayehi vaker yom hashishi. ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה וישבות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדיש אותו כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. סברי רבותיי וחבריי, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. V'shabbat kodsho v'yahavahu v'ratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lima'aseh v'reshit. Ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh, zecher letziot Mitzrayim. Ki vaynu v'chartan, ve'otaynu kidashta mikol ha'yamim, meshavat kodshcha be'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchatanu. Baruch atah Adonai mikadish haShabbat. Amen. L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Pirtei Avon, bon appetit, enjoy. May this Shabbat bring you a sense of wholeness, a sense of getting your spirits back up, and a sense of peace. Shabbat Shalom.